we discovered that your brain thrives on a healthy baseline of entropy to stay flexible and creative. But if our brains naturally have the capacity for brilliance, why do we constantly find ourselves stuck in mental ruts, feeling burnt out, or trapped by rigid thinking? Welcome back to Mastering the Mind. I am so glad you're here for episode 2. In our previous episode, we explored how a little bit of structured chaos and high neural entropy keeps your cognitive machinery agile. We looked at how stepping off autopilot allows you to solve complex problems and spark genuine innovation. But understanding the goal is only half the battle. To truly master your mind, you have to understand the invisible force that drags you right back into those predictable, low-entropy loops the second you stop paying attention. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the brain's internal autopilot, the default mode network. We are going to look at how it works, why it creates cognitive biases that limit your worldview, and exactly how you can consciously short-circuit it to break free from mental rigidity. To understand why we get stuck, we have to look at a specific system in the brain discovered by neuroscientists, the default mode network. When you are actively engaged in a challenging task, learning a new skill, or solving a puzzle, your default mode network typically quiets down, making room for task-positive networks to take the wheel. But the moment you zone out, daydream, replay past conversations, or ruminate on future worries, your default mode network fires up. The default mode network is essentially your brain's resting state command center. It is responsible for self-reflection, autobiographical memory, and imaging scenarios. From an evolutionary standpoint, it is a brilliant survival mechanism. It allows your brain to process social dynamics and rehearse potential futures without burning through massive amounts of cognitive energy. However, there is a major downside. Because the default mode network relies on past experiences to predict the future, it loves shortcuts. It takes massive amounts of complex, incoming information and forces it through old, well-worn mental templates. Over time, those templates harden into rigid cognitive biases. Your default mode network, DMN, stops actively perceiving the world as it is, and instead starts showing you a heavily edited, highly predictable simulation of what it expects to see. When your default mode network dominates unchecked, you fall into deep mental rigidity. This manifests as everyday cognitive biases that silently sabotage your decision-making and creativity. Let's look at 2 of the most common traps driven by this low-entropy state. 1. Confirmation bias. Your brain hates being wrong, because being wrong costs energy and threatens its established worldview. So, your default mode network actively filters out data that contradicts what you already believe, while hyper-focusing on anything that proves you right. You stop searching for truth and start searching for validation. 2. Functional fixedness. This is the inability to see an object or a concept being used for anything other than its traditional purpose. If your DMN is running the show, a tool is only ever a hammer. A rule is absolute, and a problem can only ever be solved the exact way it was solved last time. When these biases take over, your neural entropy plummets. your mind locks onto a single track, making it nearly impossible to adapt when circumstances change. You aren't actually thinking. You are just looping through pre-recorded mental scripts. It is easy to brush this off as a normal day-to-day friction, but living permanently locked in a low-entropy, default mode network heavy state has a heavy cost. When your brain refuses to update its internal models, you experience chronic mental fatigue. Ironically, running on autopilot doesn't actually save your energy long-term. Repetitive worry and rigid rumination burn through mental bandwidth just as fast as active problem solving, leaving you exhausted by midday. Stifled growth. You stop noticing opportunities for innovation because your brain categorizes everything new as irrelevant or too risky. Emotional stagnation. Just like your thoughts, your reactions to stress become automated. Instead of responding thoughtfully to a challenge, you snap into defensive, habitual emotional reflexes. So, how do we crack open the default mode network and pull ourselves out of these rigid cognitive loops? You can't turn off the DMN completely, nor would you want to, since it is vital for self-reflection. But you can learn to interrupt its monopoly on your attention. Here are 4 practical ways to short-circuit your brain's autopilot starting today. 1. The Steel Man exercise. When you find yourself strongly disagreeing with an idea, an approach, or another person, force your default mode network to pause. Intentionally construct the absolute strongest, most charitable version of your argument you disagree with. By stepping outside your confirmation bias, you force your neural networks to process alternative perspectives and break rigid loops. 2. Mindful interruption triggers. Set a physical reminder or a random timer on your phone twice a day. When it goes off, freeze for 10 seconds and ask yourself, what automated assumption am I running on right now? Just shining a spotlight of conscious awareness on your thoughts forces the DMN to step back. 3. Deliberate perspective shifting. When you are stuck on a problem, consciously view it through a completely different lens. Ask yourself, for example, how would a 10-year-old solve this? How would an engineer, an artist, or a historian approach this? This simple mental pivot short-circuits functional fixedness. And 4. Sensory grounding breaks. Because the default mode network thrives on internal chatter, past memories and future worries anchor yourself back into the immediate physical present. Step outside, listen closely to ambient sounds, or focus entirely on your physical environment for 2 minutes. Raw sensory input immediately drags your brain out of internal rumination and boots up your active, high-entropy processing networks. As we wrap up episode 2 of Mastering the Mind, please remember that your brain's autopilot isn't your enemy. It's just an efficient tool that has overstayed its welcome. Recognizing when you are trapped in mental rigidity is the first step towards true cognitive freedom. Stop letting old mental scripts run your life. Step off autopilot, challenge your assumptions, and keep optimizing your mind. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep questioning, keep growing, and I will see you in episode 3. I hope you guys liked this visual for today's episode. This is at the beautiful, calming, and serene Fort Trumbull State Park in New London, Connecticut, accompanied by train sounds, ocean sounds, and birds. It's truly peaceful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.